Hi all, this is BRR. So in this session, we will discuss about browser compatibility coding techniques for a web developer. If you look at most of the developers nowadays, they are working on the development to support on multiple browsers, and not only in the Internet Explorer. Like if you look at in the world, so you'll be having different browsers like Internet Explorer, Edge browser, and Chrome browser, and Firefox, Safari. And if you look at mobile devices, ipad and ios, they will be again having in chrome and safari browsers. So how we are going to develop a website or web page which will be compatible on these different web browsers? Okay, basically this browser compatibility is nothing but this is the capability of a website or a web application or a script or html designed to function on different web browsers available in the market. So as I said, in the market, we'll be having different browsers like an IE and Firefox and Safari and Chrome. And if you want to make your web page or web application compatibility to all these browsers, so we have to follow some coding techniques in the website development. So browser compatibility is the manner in which a web page looks in different browsers. Different web browsers reach the website code differently. In other words, I can say like if you look at IE Internet Explorer, this will render in different way, and if you look at Chrome browser, it will render in a different website, a different way. I mean, comparing to other Firefox and Safari browsers. So each and every browser have a different render engine. Based on the render engine, it will render your website. So to compatible with all these render engines, we have to follow some coding techniques. Today, web applications are accessed on various platforms. As I told you, in Windows, PC, Mac, PC, handheld devices like iPad and iOS and Android devices, and each platform use multiple browsers like Chrome, IE, Firefox, Safari, etc. Every browser has its own HTML rendering engine, which displays the same web page with slightly different page and text formatting. So that is true, like because every browser have its own rendering engine. Based on the rendering engine, so it will render your website, because the render engine is nothing but set of rules defined by the organization of the relevant browser. So based on those rules, your website will get rendered. Similarly, every browser differently interpret the JavaScript, and it's possible that it may not work similarly on all browsers. Yeah, because if you look at XML DOM operations or Microsoft DOM operations, it won't work on other browsers. Only Internet Explorer will supports. If you want to work on these kind of things on other browsers, we have to use XML parsing or XML HTTP request kind of thing. So not only that thing. If you look at other aspect, like if you look at control and HTML control text box, non-property change event will not work on other browsers. Non-change event similarly. So not only the website rendering, even JavaScript events or JavaScript logic also will render in a different way. And don't assume that the code which you are writing in the JavaScript is going to work on all browsers. So there are wide distribution of users on each platform and browser, and it's extremely important to make sure that web application properly work on all browsers. So as I said, different browsers are being used in the various platforms. So based on those browsers, we have to build website, and we have to be build website in the sense we have to follow some coding guidelines. So cross-site and cross-browser compatibility testing is conducted to make sure application behaves correctly. So in different behaviors of the applications are identified and are fixed to make applications stable across all platforms. So I can say that testers mixing the functional and cross-browser bugs with each other. The difference between the two is very simple. Any bug which produced on all browser is a functional bug, but the bug one which is not producing on all browser is a cross-browser bug. So when I say like there is an issue which is coming on all browsers, we can simply say that it's a bug, it's an issue, or it's a kind of bug. But when some issue comes on some browsers, like I got an issue in Chrome browser, but similar issue is not coming out on all browsers, we should not say it's a bug, it's a cross-browser bug. Okay, this is what the difference between the things which the testers are mixing up, like functional and cross-browser bugs are mixing up, and they're posting issues in Jira or somewhere bug tracker, and somewhere they're posting it as an issue. It's not an issue. It's a kind of they have to categorize the issue as functional issue and cross-browser issue. A good tester must know the complete cross-browser checklist to identify as many bugs as possible. So I can say below are the some of the cases where the tester has to be look at these aspects, and developer also need to look at these areas when they start developing the website. If you look at, the first one is a CSS validation. So I can say that this CSS validations and HTML and XHTML validations, these are the, and page validations, these are the validation sections basically. So generally there are certain things on web page that remain same when you look at the rendering on every browser. Like, image size would remain same with all browsers, and font color would remain same as it is mentioned in the style sheet. Text padding also remains same, background also remains same. So these are remain same when you look at all the browsers. But when you look at these 13 areas which I mentioned here in the list, these will get differently vary from browser to browser. So as I said, validation, CSS and HTML, XML, XHTML validations, this is done to ensure that pages that has been developed are free from HTML error are also following the standard set of styles by the W3 consortium. So we have to be follow as per the standard, or we have to be write the CSS validation logic, which are developed are free from HTML error. Because HTML is a error-free language, it won't display you like when you are writing it like CSS or a JavaScript or a designing of HTML page. Everything will comes on when you run the application on the browser. So we have to be ensure that, so these things should be taken care of, taken care when you browse your website while you writing it, instead of coming out at browser bot and looking at these aspects. And coming to the page validation with and without JavaScript enabled. So this is also checked by enabling and disabling JavaScript of browser basically. We have to be ensure that, like, every browser should be enabled this JavaScript, otherwise the validations won't work when you run this application on the web browser. This has to be put it into as part of guideline to the end user. And also Ajax and jQuery functionality. So this also similarly the above page validations. For this also we have to be enable this JavaScript enabled. And when you write an Ajax and jQuery functionality, we should be ensure that, like, if you're using a jQuery, you should be ensure that, like, jQuery ribbons has been given it or not, whether it is referred as within the head tag or after form tag. We should be ensuring it, because sometimes browsers may download all the references which you are mentioning in the HTML file very fast, and some browsers may not that much fast. And when you are writing a function which is being called before downloading of your jQuery, it may have a problem. So always what I'm going to suggest is, if you have any dependency with the function calling, so then you have to be mentioned these downloading of dependent files at the top of your HTML file, so that it will download first and come out to your function. And also the function should be called when the document ready state is completed, but not blindly like calling on the page, like in the open place. You have to be ensure that document ready state completed or not, then you have to be called this particular Ajax or jQuery function. And similarly font size validations, because some browser override this and their default color. So if that font is not available on the system, that sometimes it happens. So you should be ensure that font validation should be done properly. That means when you use any particular font, you should be ensure that the end user should also have similar font on the system. Otherwise, what it will happen is the default browser, the default font will get appeared as both browser is giving by the default font, if the system is not have that particular font. Let us say, like, I've been developed a web application which is using a font one kind of style. That font one is not available on the end user system where my application is being deployed. At the time, what the browser is going to be do is, the browser is going to be displayed with the default font, because the font one is not available in system. So that these things we have to ensure before you deploy the website. And coming to the page layout in different resolutions, that also you should ensure, because proper alignment of your page and everything should be considered, because it should be tested center, like left hand side and RHS side kind of thing should be tested using in different resolutions. So for this, what you have to do is, instead of putting this width and height, mentioning within the pixels, you always suggestible to use in a percentage, so that it will render based on the resolution, based on your screen size and window size. That you have to take care of it. So always suggestible to use in a percentage instead of putting in pixels. All images and alignments. So this is also one more thing you have to be ensured, because the proper alignment of the image on the page is perfectly placed or not. You should be ensured. Otherwise, it will differently render on the different browsers, and that may cause a problem as an alignment. So you should be ensure this. And header and footer sections should be verified with very care, and all text and its spacing alignment should be taken into a account for testing. So header and footer sections also should be placed very I mean specific places with care. Otherwise, based on the browser alignment, browser versions on the screen resolutions, it may render differently, and it put your text on alignment in different positions. It will cause a problem. So it should be tested with this proper resolutions and proper way, by putting all these header and footer sections in the proper places in the HTML with percentage. And coming to the page content alignment to center and LHS and RHS, this is what I told you and above, the page layout in different resolutions. We should be tested this thing in the center and LHS and RHS properly. And coming to the page styles, so this also, you need to take care of it. Page styles, like let us say, like if a page alignment is something, no, you put it as center, and that should be uh, specifically, you have to be ensure that, like, the width and height should be specified with the percentage kind of thing, instead of like calculating based on browser resolution or screen resolution and putting it as pixels and kind of thing. And you better put this in a percentage, like 50% or 30% kind of thing. It always displays the page in center, or in LHS or RHS kind of thing. And coming to the date formats also, you should be ensure the date formats, because it takes the format from the original settings. So you have to be ensure this date formats, like how it is going to be work in different browsers. If you look at browsers, you'll be having the language cultures in the browser itself. So sometimes the text from the browser, like based on that, it will render you date format. But you should be cautious about this, and you should give a guideline to the end user that the browser language also should be in specific regional specific culture. Otherwise, it won't work, and it will give a wrong results kind of thing. You have to be give it in the guideline. And special characters with HTML character encoding, this is also a major part we have in the development of website. So we should ensure that all the special characters and the encoding characters should be encrypted, and the pass it to the server. And again, this coming from the server, you have to be decrypted and unescape the special characters and shown on the page. Okay. uh, like these are the main areas. Basically, you have to be look into these all the aspects, like page zoom in, zoom out functionality, everything you have to ensure. uh, Alignment of controls, like sometimes you're putting bullets, radio buttons, check boxes. So sometimes you'll be using HTML controls. All these things you should be properly placed with the proper positioning based on the resolutions. So these are things you should be take care of during the development, and the tester also should be look at all these areas, so that they will post different issues on these areas before give it to the production, so that developer also ensure about all these things should not repeat in the deployment phase. So these are the main areas which tester and developer has to be look at these things, and ensure about all the areas has been properly handled it or not. So, and obviously you will have to repeat similar tests on different operating systems, Windows, Linux, and Mac, and mobile devices with different browsers. So not only in single browser and single machine, so that you will be having a full confidence on your application, like this is going to be uh, work on all browsers. Okay, hope this clears, like how we are going to you know test the cross browser application on different browsers, and developer areas where developer has to be look at the things to correct the things before give it to the testing or deployment. Thank you.